Audie Murphy's story has long been remembered as one of heroism, tragedy, and mystery. When his small private plane crashed into the fog-covered mountains of Virginia on May 28, 1971, the world believed it was a heartbreaking accident that took the life of America's most decorated World War II soldier-turned-Hollywood actor. Murphy was only 45 years old when the accident happened. He had been a national hero, famous for holding off an entire company of German soldiers during the war and killing over 200 enemy fighters. He had earned every major combat medal that the United States could offer. For years, the official explanation claimed poor visibility and bad weather had caused the crash. It seemed to be just another small aircraft tragedy in the Appalachian Mountains. But in recent years, new evidence and declassified documents have brought forward another version of events, one that suggests Audie Murphy might not have died by accident at all. According to new findings, his death could have been the result of something far darker, possibly involving people within the very government he had once fought for and defended. The question that now lingers is not only how Audie Murphy died, but why someone might have wanted him gone. To understand how this could have happened, one must first understand who Audie Murphy truly was. He was born in 1925 in rural Hunt County, Texas, to a poor family of sharecroppers. He was the seventh of 12 children, and his early life was filled with struggle. His father abandoned the family when Audie was still a boy, forcing him to take responsibility for his younger siblings. When his mother died in 1941, 16-year-old Audie became the head of the family. He had no time for childhood games or dreams. By the time he was 8, he was hunting small animals to feed his siblings, and by 10, he was working in cotton fields alongside adults just to keep his family alive. Though he only had a fifth-grade education, he learned how to be resourceful, self-reliant, and determined. He also taught himself how to shoot with perfect aim, a skill that would later save his life many times during the war. His rough upbringing shaped him into a man who could endure anything without breaking down. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Audie wanted to join the military immediately. But he was small, just 5'5" and only 112 pounds, so the Marines, Navy, and Airborne Forces all rejected him. Determined not to give up, he lied about his age and convinced the U.S. Army to enlist him in 1942 when he was barely 17. Once he joined, his courage and strength quickly became legendary. Over 3 years, he fought in 9 major campaigns and rose from a simple private to a commissioned lieutenant on the battlefield. He killed more than 200 enemy soldiers, was wounded 3 times, and received 33 medals and honors from the U.S., France, and Belgium. His most famous act of bravery happened in January 1945 near Holtzwihr, France. With his company reduced to only 19 men against a massive German force, Audie climbed onto a burning tank destroyer and used its machine gun to hold off an entire company of German soldiers, even while he was wounded. Afterward, he led a successful counterattack. For this, he received the Medal of Honor. He was only 19. When the war ended, Murphy came home as one of the most celebrated heroes in American history. His face appeared on the cover of Life magazine, and he became a national icon. But while he looked like a hero on the outside, inside he was deeply scarred. The horrors he had experienced never left him. He suffered from what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder, but at that time people didn't even have a name for it. Soldiers were expected to come home, get over it, and move on with their lives. Murphy couldn't. He had constant nightmares, insomnia, and flashbacks. He kept a loaded gun under his pillow because he never truly felt safe. He often said that part of him was still in France, still fighting, still hearing the gunfire. Despite his inner pain, Murphy tried to build a new life in Hollywood. Actor James Cagney saw his photo on Life magazine and invited him to come to Los Angeles. Even though Audie had no acting experience, Universal Studios signed him because of his fame as a war hero. Over time, he became a genuine movie star, appearing in more than 40 films, mostly westerns where his quiet toughness fit perfectly. His biggest success came in 1955 when he starred in To Hell and Back, a movie based on his own autobiography where he played himself. The film broke box office records and became one of the most successful movies in Universal's history. But ironically, the film also forced him to relive his most painful war memories in front of the camera, deepening his trauma. Off-screen, Murphy tried to fill the emptiness inside him by writing country songs, raising racehorses, and running small businesses. He wrote songs that were recorded by famous singers like Dean Martin and Charlie Pride. He also became close friends with stars like Jimmy Stewart. Outwardly, he looked like he had everything: a Hollywood career, fame, money, and respect. But inside, he was still broken. He admitted to friends that he felt trapped in a nightmare he could never wake from. Murphy married twice. His first marriage ended quickly due to his violent mood swings and emotional instability. His second wife, Pamela Archer, was more patient and supportive. She created a loving home for him and their two sons, giving him some sense of peace. She understood his trauma and protected him when his memories became unbearable. Still, the scars from war never healed. Murphy began speaking publicly about his struggles with combat stress and how the government failed to help veterans suffering from similar issues. He was one of the first famous figures to speak honestly about mental trauma after war. In the 1950s and 1960s, this was unheard of. He wanted the government to recognize that psychological wounds were as real as physical ones and pushed for better treatment for soldiers. His activism for veterans made him both admired and disliked. Many powerful people in the military and political world didn't want attention drawn to the failures of the Veterans Administration, VA. As the years passed, Murphy's movie career slowed down. Westerns were no longer as popular, and younger stars took over Hollywood. He faced financial troubles and tax problems, which added to his stress. But he refused to stop fighting for veterans' rights. He regularly visited hospitals, met with wounded soldiers, and even testified before Congress. He was learning more about how the VA was mishandling funds and mistreating veterans, and he started asking dangerous questions. By 1970, he had begun researching a television project about veterans' experiences, hoping to expose what he saw as corruption and neglect. The deeper he dug, the more disturbing information he uncovered. He discovered that certain VA hospitals were allegedly being used for secret government experiments, programs that tested psychological and drug-based conditioning on veterans without their consent. These experiments, as later evidence suggested, were connected to covert CIA operations similar to the infamous MK-Ultra program. Murphy realized that the issue wasn't just mismanagement or stolen money. It was about human lives being exploited for secret research. He gathered documents, talked to veterans who had been experimented on, and began preparing to go public. He even arranged meetings with major newspapers like the Washington Post and the New York Times for June 1971. But those meetings never happened, because his plane crashed just days before. On May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a twin-engine Aero Commander plane in Martinsville, Virginia, along with 5 others. The pilot, Herman Butler, was an experienced flyer with more than 8,000 hours in the air. Despite foggy and dangerous weather, Butler decided to take off. The plane disappeared from radar 14 minutes later and crashed into Brush Mountain. Everyone on board was killed instantly. The official report blamed pilot error and bad weather. But people who knew Murphy and Butler found the explanation suspicious. Butler was known for his caution and wouldn't normally take such a risk. The flight path was unusual, flying far lower than safe altitude, and some pieces of the wreckage were missing when investigators arrived. Witnesses reported hearing an explosion before the crash, not after. One local man swore that he heard 2 distinct sounds, first a boom in the air, and then, seconds later, the sound of the crash. Pamela Murphy never believed her husband's death was an accident. She told her son that Audie would never have gotten on a plane with a careless pilot, and that something about the official story didn't add up. For years, the family had doubts, but no way to prove anything. Then, in 2018, the truth began to emerge. Declassified documents from the Cold War era revealed that Audie Murphy had been under government surveillance since at least 1969. His mail was opened, his phone calls recorded, and his movements tracked. He had even been listed as a priority subject under the FBI's COINTELPRO program. the same program that targeted civil rights leaders and anti-war activists. This raised a haunting question. Why would the government spy on its most honored war hero? The answer seemed to point back to his investigation into the VA and the secret research programs. Murphy had collected names, dates, and documents that linked the VA to defense contractors and intelligence agencies. He had uncovered evidence that veterans were being used as test subjects for behavior modification and drug experiments. His plan was to reveal all of this to the public. According to the declassified files, he was preparing to meet journalists who had previously published major exposés on government secrets. He was also working on a legal defense fund to protect whistleblowers within the VA who were ready to testify. Papers related to this foundation were reportedly found at the crash site, but mysteriously left out of official records. When experts recently re-examined photos and evidence from the crash using modern technology, they found signs that parts of the plane may have been tampered with. Certain mechanical components showed marks that didn't match normal maintenance work, suggesting someone had intentionally altered them in a way that would cause the aircraft to fail mid-flight. Some parts appeared to have broken before impact rather than because of it. Adding to the mystery, pilot Herman Butler was later found to have past connections to Air America, a CIA-controlled airline used for covert missions in Southeast Asia during the 1960s. He wasn't just a civilian pilot. He had intelligence ties. When all these pieces are put together, the story of Audie Murphy's death takes on a new and deeply unsettling meaning. He was not just a hero who died in a plane crash. He may have been a man silenced because he was too close to revealing a truth the government didn't want exposed. He had survived the horrors of war, endured trauma and fame, and dedicated his later years to helping other veterans. Yet in the end, he might have been betrayed by the same country he risked his life to protect. His legacy remains one of bravery and integrity, but the mystery surrounding his death serves as a dark reminder that sometimes even heroes are not safe when they challenge powerful interests. Audie Murphy's story is not just about a fallen hero, it's about how truth can be buried beneath official reports and how the pursuit of justice can come at the highest price. For decades, the world saw him as a symbol of courage and sacrifice. But behind the medals and the movies was a man who continued to fight for what was right, even when it cost him everything. And perhaps that final fight, for honesty and accountability, was the one that ended his life. The investigation into the mysterious death of Audie Murphy revealed a disturbing discovery. Experts found what appeared to be deliberate weakening of the elevator control cables, the crucial system that lets pilots control a plane's pitch. Under normal flying conditions, this modification would have been nearly impossible to detect. However, when the plane hit turbulence, which was almost guaranteed in the mountainous area where Murphy's plane went down, the weakened parts would fail completely, forcing the aircraft into an uncontrollable dive. According to aviation expert Michaels, it was the kind of sabotage that was both perfect and horrifying, virtually untraceable, certain to be fatal, and easily dismissed as the result of bad weather or pilot error. It was the exact kind of method that covert intelligence operations might have used during that era. In 2020, nearly 50 years after the crash, a man who had once worked as a technician at the Martinsville airport came forward with a shocking story. He agreed to speak only under the condition of anonymity, still fearing for his safety. He said that on the night before the crash, he saw two unfamiliar men working on Murphy's plane. They didn't seem to belong to the regular maintenance team, but they had proper credentials, so he hadn't questioned them at the time. The next day, after hearing about the crash, he mentioned what he had seen to his supervisor, only to be told to forget about it. That warning haunted him for decades. He eventually signed a sworn statement, saying he had kept the secret for nearly 50 years, but could no longer live with it. Further evidence supporting the sabotage theory came from a detailed metallurgical analysis of the plane's wreckage. Scientists studying the fragments of the elevator control system discovered marks that were consistent with tampering rather than normal wear or manufacturing flaws. The pattern of metal fatigue showed signs that the parts had been deliberately cut or scored in a way that would cause them to fail under stress, making it look like a mechanical accident while actually ensuring disaster. Even more alarming was testimony that came from inside the government. A retired intelligence operative, now in his 90s, provided a sworn statement claiming that Murphy's death had not been accidental at all. According to him, it was a containment operation, authorized by high-ranking officials who believed Murphy posed a threat to sensitive classified programs. The operative insisted that he had not personally participated in the crash setup, but admitted to having direct knowledge of the mission. His statement matched details from partially declassified government files, which placed known intelligence operatives in the Martinsville area just days before Murphy's fatal flight. Former CIA historian Dr. Robert Garrison said that such operations were not unheard of during that period. The Church Committee hearings in 1975 had already revealed numerous instances of illegal domestic surveillance and harassment of American citizens who were considered potential threats to national security. The shocking part wasn't that these operations happened. It was that such a method would be used on someone like Audie Murphy, one of the most decorated war heroes in U.S. history. Even more chilling were the classified documents detailing what happened after the crash. Internal memos showed a coordinated effort to make sure the official investigation concluded that pilot error was to blame. Investigators were reportedly instructed to minimize their examination of the physical evidence and to steer witnesses away from any alternative explanations. One redacted memo dated June 3, 1971, less than a week after the crash, explicitly stated that the issue was resolved per operation. Redacted, and that all assets were in place to manage any deviations from the narrative. Taken together, all these discoveries painted a dark and disturbing picture. Audie Murphy, a man who had survived brutal combat in World War II, may have been deliberately killed by his own government. His crime, according to researchers like journalist Michael Thorne, was that he refused to remain silent about unethical and dangerous medical experiments being conducted on veterans. The evidence, Thorne concluded, didn't just hint at government involvement. It pointed to a calculated assassination designed to silence one of America's greatest heroes. For Murphy's family, these revelations were both heartbreaking and validating. His son, Terry Murphy, has been leading the push for a new investigation into his father's death. In interviews, Terry said that the idea of his father dying in a simple plane accident had never sat right with the family. His father had survived hundreds of combat missions against impossible odds. How could turbulence have defeated him? The truth, Terry now believes, is that his father was silenced because he refused to stop fighting for the rights of his fellow veterans. For the past 5 years, Terry has been battling an exhausting bureaucratic system in search of answers. He says every step forward has been met with resistance. Government agencies continue to block the release of crucial documents, citing national security concerns, even though more than 50 years have passed. Every time we get close to the truth, Terry said, another witness dies, another file disappears, or another document is completely redacted. It's like trying to finish a puzzle when someone keeps hiding the pieces. But we're not giving up. My father never gave up, and neither will we. Murphy's story has also brought together unexpected allies. Veterans organizations from across the political spectrum have joined forces to demand transparency, arguing that Murphy's case represents a much larger problem of government neglect and betrayal of those who served. Audie Murphy is still fighting for veterans, even decades after his death, said Vietnam veteran James Peterson. If someone like him, America's most decorated soldier, could be silenced for speaking out, what chance did ordinary veterans have? In 2022, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators called for an independent commission to investigate both Murphy's death and the secret programs he had allegedly discovered. Although the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs acknowledged the request, neither agency has yet taken meaningful action. Political analyst Dr. Margaret Chen believes that the government's reluctance to investigate speaks volumes. If this were truly just a conspiracy theory, she said, the easiest solution would be full transparency. Release the files, let independent experts examine them, and let the facts speak for themselves. The continued secrecy only suggests that powerful people still have something to hide. The implications of these allegations reach far beyond one man's death. If they're true, they represent not only the betrayal of Murphy himself, but also a betrayal of the democratic ideals he fought to protect. Historian William Porter reflected on the cruel irony of it all. Murphy risked his life to defeat fascism, a system that viewed citizens as expendable. To think that he might have been murdered by his own government for exposing similar abuses is almost too painful to comprehend. As historians re-examine Murphy's legacy, they're beginning to see him in a new light. He's no longer just the fearless soldier who became a Hollywood actor. He's now recognized as a man who continued his fight for justice long after the battlefield. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a military historian, said that Murphy's advocacy for veterans was simply a continuation of his wartime service. "He never stopped fighting," she said. "He just changed the battlefield from Europe to Washington." If that's true, his death was not only tragic, but symbolic of the price one can pay for standing up to power. Murphy's long struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder also takes on new meaning in this context. What once seemed like a private battle now appears to have fueled his determination to help others. Psychologist Dr. Matthew Sullivan explained that Murphy's first-hand understanding of trauma gave him deep empathy for other veterans. He knew what desperation felt like, the same desperation that made some veterans agree to undergo experimental medical treatments. That empathy, combined with his moral clarity, made him a serious threat to anyone trying to hide unethical research. Advocate Sarah Martinez added that Murphy's openness about his mental health was radical for his time. In the early 1970s, military culture still stigmatized psychological trauma. Men were expected to stay silent, to pretend that war hadn't changed them. Murphy refused to play along. His honesty about his own suffering threatened the entire system, which depended on denial and silence. By admitting he was struggling, Martinez said, Murphy shattered the myth that real men don't feel pain. And that's why he scared people in power. Because he was telling the truth. The saddest part of the story, according to his son Terry, is that his father was likely betrayed by the very country he had risked his life to defend. "Sometimes the truth isn't just sad, it's sinister," Terry said. "My father deserved better. So did all those veterans he was trying to help. It's not too late for America to give them the truth." As new evidence surfaces and more documents are slowly declassified, the long-accepted version of events is being challenged. What was once seen as a tragic plane accident now appears to have been something far darker. A carefully planned act meant to silence a hero. It may represent one of the most shameful moments in American history, where loyalty to secrecy outweighed loyalty to justice. Audie Murphy's life was a story of courage from beginning to end. He rose from poverty to become the most decorated American soldier of World War II. He became a Hollywood star and then a passionate advocate for veterans. But in his final years, his biggest battle wasn't fought on a foreign field. It was against powerful institutions at home. And that fight may have cost him his life. Even in death, however, Murphy's struggle continues. His legacy has become a symbol of integrity and the unending fight for truth. "The worst thing we can do," said historian William Porter, "is to look away from the truth because it's uncomfortable." Murphy never looked away from danger when others needed him. The least we can do is show that same courage now. As time goes on, the mystery surrounding Audie Murphy's death grows clearer, not darker. The more the pieces come together, the more it seems that he wasn't just a casualty of fate, but a victim of a system that lost sight of the very values he embodied. His story stands as a warning about what happens when governments operate without accountability, even in a democracy. For his family, for the veterans he defended, and for everyone who believes in justice, the search for truth is far from over. Audie Murphy's final legacy isn't just about the medals he earned or the battles he fought. It's about his courage to speak out, even when it meant risking everything. In life, he proved that one man's bravery could inspire a nation. In death, he reminds us that truth itself can be a battlefield, and that courage isn't only about facing bullets, but about facing the lies that history tries to bury.